Tonight on the MTN News, a crime that left Sheridan in shock.
But yes, we were very terrified because obviously this guy wasn't in his right mind at the time after what had happened, and we didn't know what could happen to her.
A Wyoming woman whose house was destroyed during a police standoff with a cop killer talks about the incident for the first time. Also, a crime-ridden apartment house in Billings that police have been called to thousands of times avoids the wrecking ball, at least for now. And
am I awake?
You're awake.
A free car helps lift a hardened woman who has experienced more than her fair share of heartbreak. The MTN News starts right now.
From Montana's news leader, this is the MTN 10 o'clock news.
Good evening and thanks for joining us on your Friday. I'm Russ Riesinger. Congress once again going right down to the wire, trying to avert a government shutdown set to take effect at midnight. Earlier, lawmakers in the House pulled together enough votes to pass a plan that will fund the government for the next few months.
The bill is passed.
The bill funds the federal government at current levels through March and includes $100 billion in disaster aid, $10 billion in farm aid, but it dropped President-elect Donald Trump's demand to lift the debt ceiling.
We're excited about this outcome tonight. We're grateful that everyone stood together to do the right thing. And having gotten this done now as the last order of business for the year, we are set up for a big and important new start in January.
We will likely not have a government shutdown, which is good.
Optimism that the Senate will pass that bill as they go late into the night. A shutdown would keep all non-essential government workers off the job, while essential ones would work without pay. Some new developments in the battle over the future of the Colonial Apartments. The city of Billings announcing a scheduled trial for next month is now pushed to April after last-minute agreement was reached in mediation this week to give the Colonial owner time to fix ongoing issues. The city's Code Enforcement Division filed the court case last year against John Scoggy, the Colonial owner, alleging Scoggy was maintaining a dangerous structure in violation of local and state regulations. Trial was set for January 21st, where if the city won, it was considering demolishing that building. Well, now Scoggy has 3 more months to bring the building up to code, something he says he's already done by adding a new fire escape and removing troublesome tenants that contribute to the building's high police call volume. If the sides cannot come to a full agreement, the new trial date is April 14th. And Scoggy is currently dealing with other legal issues. The 81-year-old pleaded not guilty this morning in district court to 2 felony counts, including aggravated assault of a 64-year-old woman. Court documents allege Scoggy pushed the woman downstairs back in August at a residence he owns, causing her to break her hip. Prosecutors allege Scoggy then left the woman alone and didn't get her medical attention. The woman's daughter says she found her severely injured sitting in a chair where she'd been for 10 to 12 hours. She's been in a rehab facility ever since. Scoggy's bond was set at $100,000. Tonight, an update on one of the biggest stories we covered this past year. A Sheridan, Wyoming police officer shot and killed in the line of duty. The suspect holed up inside a home for 30 hours before losing his own life after police used an excavator to tear that house down. Well, tonight, for the first time since last February's tragic ordeal, the woman who owned that house is speaking out. She tells me it was an emotional and frightening experience, but she's thankful for the support the community has shown and looking forward to moving into a newly built home soon.
She said that there were police surrounding my house and that they told her to tell me not to come home. And I went to ask her what was going on, and the phone went dead.
When Carol Hamilton got that call from her daughter, she had no idea what was happening inside her Sheridan home. No idea that a police officer had been shot and killed nearby, and no idea that the suspect was inside her basement. But she knew one thing.
We were freaking out. We knew that my mom was in the house, and
she says it took 2 frantic calls to police, letting them know that her 80-year-old mom was upstairs before they finally called for her to come out.
Finally, we did get my mother out, but yes, we were very terrified because obviously this guy wasn't in his right mind at the time after what had happened, and we didn't know what could happen to her.
By then, And she was finding out more about why police had surrounded her home and were keeping her and everyone else 2 blocks away. The man holed up inside, William Lowry, had shot and killed Police Sergeant Nevada Krinke while the officer was attempting to serve a trespassing notice.
You know, that's very frightening. And so there was a lot of people that were affected.
She says she didn't know Lowry personally, but that he was an acquaintance of a man who was boarding in her basement and that the boarder was supposed to help Lowry move that day. The standoff would continue for 30 grueling hours.
I was concerned about my dogs, and I really wanted to get them out of there. And they used water hoses for 12 hours, pushing water into that, and they filled the basement up with about 4 feet of water from all the water that went in there. And then they did use tear gas and CS gas and tried to get him out of there. And
police finally used an excavator to knock much of the house down and shot and killed Lowry after they say he fired at them while attempting to flee. Despite the ordeal ending with her home in ruins, there was one bright spot.
the little dog was found under rubble where the living room used to be. And then my big dog, she was in the basement. They found her wading in the water, and it was kind of freezing around her. And so, but they got him out, and that was the best thing. So I was really super grateful for that.
Her cat, who was also in the house, was never found. Carol says she's thankful for the new house that has been built in place of her old one, thanks to insurance and a settlement with the city. She hopes to move in next month. And while that February day is something she will never forget, she also says she will forever remember the support shown by many in the community.
Overwhelming. It was amazing, the amount of community support that was shown to me.
We're down to the final few hours of fall. How will the start of winter look? Let's check in with meteorologist Jason Stiff for our first look at the forecast. Jason?
Yeah, it certainly didn't feel like a fall day today. Maybe a beginning of fall day, but not so much the last full day of fall. We had a lot of sunshine, gradually increasing clouds, and we have more clouds that are moving overhead right now, but you can still see plenty of starlight and moonlight through them. Just a couple showers of rain and snow mixes for northwestern Montana, and a few snow showers moving into the northwestern part of Beaverhead County in southwest Montana. But here in the Magic City, what a day that we had. We had a fairly seasonable low of 22, but you can see 44 degrees away from the record low of -22. However, this afternoon, we overachieved, tied a record high from 1941 at 58 degrees. If you can believe it, we are not done with this unseasonable warmth. I've forecast the new season of winter coming up in a few minutes.
A trail near the M in Missoula is closed because an old copper mine on Mount Sentinel has a new resident that should not be disturbed. A bear is now calling the old mine shaft near the top of Mount Sentinel home. Wildlife officials say it's denning up in the mine for the winter. Out of concern for everyone's safety, the University of Montana and Montana Fish, Wildlife and Parks are asking people to avoid the area.
The best thing to do is just to give them space and let them be there and den. They do not want to be disturbed. We don't want to see what could happen if we disturb them. You know, we want to keep our distance just as if we were having an encounter on a trail when the bear is out and about. So really, really important for our safety and also for the bears.
Most of Sentinel and the M are still accessible, but the trail closest to the mine is blocked off for safety. In Yellowstone County Court this morning, a large group gathered to weigh in on the future of a new Shepherd landfill slated to open in the new year. Pacific Steel is building that facility to deposit auto shredder residue. But opponents have sued the Montana Department of Environmental Quality, saying they didn't do enough to study the potential environmental impact. Our Matt Carmack reports.
For many Yellowstone County residents, it was a frustrating and disappointing afternoon as Judge Mary Jane Kinsley ruled to postpone a follow-up hearing in the spring.
Stop the Shepherd Landfill is a community group of all volunteers that are worried about their community.
It was a sea of yellow ribbons inside the Yellowstone County Courthouse Friday, a sign of solidarity in a fight over a proposed automobile waste landfill. This 320-acre project, approved by the Department of Environmental Quality, is set to become a repository for tens of thousands of tons of shredded auto waste.
Seeing the entire public area packed with yellow ribbons more yellow shirts was very motivating.
The goal of the Stop the Shepherd landfill movement, to revoke a license administered by the Montana DEQ to Pacific Steel and Recycling, and to prevent operations from starting in January.
You can't destroy the environment. And that's exactly what the Montana Constitution says you are.
But others inside the courtroom feel much differently. Nicholas Whitaker represents the Montana Department of Environmental Quality, which refuted the group's claims.
Neither of these claims have merit. First, under this court's standard review for a MIPA challenge, the plaintiff has failed to meet their burden to show by clear and convincing evidence in the record.
Pacific Steel and Recycling also argues it has safeguards in place to divert polluted water, including groundwater wells to monitor the aquifer and 3 separate lining systems. Safeguards that have played a role in the DEQ's decision to approve the project.
Has plaintiff proven by clear and convincing evidence that DEQ's finding was arbitrary and capricious? The answer to that question is no.
Ultimately Friday, however, the court chose not to rule on the lawsuit, instead scheduling for March, and plans to begin operations in January will continue unless the plaintiffs file a restraining order or preliminary injunction.
It is understandable that there's a lot of information that was presented over the 3 hours we were there. And the judge does probably need some time to sit with it.
Neither Pacific Steel or the DEQ were able to comment on the ongoing litigation. As far as the public's reaction, sighs were heard across the room in a wake of the decision.
A lot of frustration.
In Billings, Matt Carmack, MTN News.